We will call to order the regular scheduled meeting of the Shola Planning and Zoning Commission for Tuesday, April the 12th of 2016. The roll call this evening shows all commissioners present with the exception of Commissioners Clark and Commissioner Adams, both of whom are excused. The pledge this evening will be done by Commissioner Berry, and I will do the invocation. If you would all please rise with me. Our Father in heaven, we ask for your guidance this evening as we consider some issues that are of importance to some of our citizens, maybe even all of our citizens. We ask for your direction, and we ask that you provide us with deliberative qualities that will help us make the best decisions that we can make for the city. We further would like to thank you so much for the moisture that you have bestowed upon us over the last couple of days, and ask that if it be your will, you continue to provide that moisture. We also ask that during the times of the particularly gusty winds that you suppress the fire danger for us. You've done a wonderful job of that over the last year or two, and we ask that you will continue to act in that vein. We also ask, as always, that you keep your arms around the service people of the men and the service people of the armed forces as they continue their efforts to protect us, whether they're at home or abroad. And we ask that you bring them home safely to their loved ones. All of these things we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And I'll be seated. All right. There is no old business for consideration this evening, so we'll proceed directly to a couple of items of new business. The first being consideration of conditional use permit 602-04-186 submitted by Brian and Bridget Riddle to allow RV storage and mini storage located at 650 North Penrod Road, that being assessor's parcel number 210-24-005C, and to amend UP 95-018 to modify the previously approved site plan to allow for RV storage in place of proposed mini storage buildings on assessor's parcel number 210-24-081A. Ms. Seckelcotter.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. On December 12, 1995, the Planning and Zoning Commission approved UP 95-018, submitted on behalf of America One Mini Storage to develop, own, and operate a self-storage facility at 2150 East Dusive Clubs. A site plan was included as part of this process. UP 95-018 was developed for the development of what is now APN 210-24-081A. This approval did not include APN 210-24005C as it was not owned by the applicant at the time of approval. Since the date of approval, the original subject property has been developed as a self-storage facility. The original site plan indicates that the property is 386.5 feet wide. The site plan indicated that the southern portion of the property would be utilized as outdoor storage with two buildings constructed on the eastern boundary. These buildings were included with an effort to provide a visual buffer from adjacent properties as well as Penrod Road from the RV storage area. The northern portion of the property was indicated to consist of metal storage buildings across the width of the property. Perimeter fencing, consistent of slatted chain link fencing material, was also indicated on the original site plan. Access was proposed to be from the Deuce of Clubs rather than Penrod Road due to ownership issues with the adjacent parcel to the east, which is APN 210-24005C. The property was developed in substantial conformance with this plan, with two exceptions. Access was able to be obtained off of Penrod Road instead of the Deuce of Clubs, and the project was narrowed from 386.5 feet in width to approximately 275 feet. The remaining width was left vacant in order to provide for commercial building opportunities. Following the approval of UP 95-018, the owners of the original mini storage property acquired APN 210-24005C. This parcel is approximately 40 feet in width and is adjacent to Penrod Road. Both APN 210-24005C and the existing mini storage facility on APN 210-24081A have been sold to a new owner. This owner, Brian and Bridget Riddle trustees, have applied for a conditional use permit, requesting to amend existing conditional use permit in order to expand the previously approved RV storage area and to add a PN 210-24005C in order to allow for development and also for RV storage. After reviewing all pertinent information, the Commission may approve the conditional use permit application to allow for expanded RV storage. This would have the result of allowing for RV storage in an area that previously indicated would be used for buildings. This would also allow RVs to be stored on the property adjacent to Penrod Road. Should the Commission vote to approve this request, they may include conditions of approval. The Commission may approve either the entire request as submitted or portions of the request as deemed appropriate. Or the Commission may deny the conditional use permit. This would have the result of requiring any future development of the property as RV or mini storage to comply with the original site plan as approved as part of UP 95-018. This would also prohibit the use of APN 210-24005C for mini storage or RV storage. If denied, the motion must state the reason for doing so. Findings of fact. Brian and Bridget Riddle L. trustees have submitted a conditional use permit application to allow RV storage and mini storage on APN 210-24005C. This application also requests the amendment of existing UP 95-018 to modify the previously approved site plan to allow for RV storage in place of the proposed mini storage buildings on APN 210-24081A. APN 210-24005C was not a part of the original conditional use permit issued in 1995. This parcel is approximately 40 feet in width and is adjacent to Penrod Road. A public fire hydrant is located on approximately the west boundary of this parcel. The original site plan submitted with UP 95-018 indicates approximately 2.4 acres to be utilized as outdoor storage. Approximately 1.3 acres have been developed as outdoor storage. The proposed addition would add approximately 2.2 acres of RV storage to the area to the existing 1.3 acres, which have already been developed. Total combined RV storage would be approximately 3.5 acres. Condition 6 of UP 95-018 states all structures built on the subject property shall be constructed in substantial conformance to the materials, colors, and heights noted on the submitted site plan. The zoning of the surrounding properties includes the north, south, east, and west, all C2, which is general commercial. And the land uses of the surrounding properties includes to the north, south, east, and west, again, all commercial. Staff sent transmittal memos to all affected agencies, and applicable comments received include: the airport manager indicated that this tract of land lies slightly north of the extended center line for runway 03 approach, under the normal approach for that runway. Due to this location, it is important to the safety of flight that all potential obstruction be kept low. and that any temporary or permanent structure, such as cranes, buildings, or signage, be submitted to the FAA using Form 7460. The result of this submission must be a finding of no hazard to air navigation by FAA airspace. Balloons, inflatable signs, and other similar marketing devices should not be employed on this site. And from the Public Works Director, the fencing of hydrants is not allowed. There should be easements for hydrants, drainage must be maintained, and there's currently drainage for conveyance on the property. The property was posted and letters were sent to all property owners within 300 feet. Staff has received comments from one adjacent property owner requesting additional information. No opposition has been received. Staff recommendations. Sorry, it's throwing me off. After hearing the Sanders for review, zoning ordinance, discussions with the applicant, and because the request is consistent with the City of Show Low General Plan, the Commission may approve conditional use permit 602-04-186 submitted by Brian and Bridget Riddle L. trustees to allow for RV storage and mini storage on APN 21024-005C and to amend UP 95018 to modify the previously approved site plan and to allow for RV storage in place of proposed mini storage buildings on APN 21024-081A, subject to the following conditions. 1, all development shall comply with applicable federal, state, and local regulations, including drainage requirements. 2, a solid material fence or wall shall be constructed around the perimeter of the proposed storage area on both APN 21024-005C and APN 21024-018A prior to storage activities taking place on the subject properties. 3, landscaping meeting the requirements of City Code Section 15160D7 shall be installed between the required perimeter fence adjacent to Penrod Road prior to storage activities taking place on the subject properties. 4, an easement for the fire hydrant located on the west boundary of APN 21025-005C, meeting the requirements of the Timber Mesa Fire District and the City of Show Low Public Works Director, shall be dedicated prior to storage activities taking place on subject properties. The applicant shall also be responsible for providing the all-weather access to this hydrant. This fire hydrant may be relocated in cooperation with Public Works and Fire District requirements. 5, the surfacing of all access ways, interior driveways, and parking areas shall be surfaced in accordance with City Code. 6, any signage intended for this property shall be in accordance with the requirements of Section 15145. 7, all outdoor security lighting shall meet the requirements of Division 5 outdoor light control of the City Code. 8, no RVs or trailers taller than 6 feet in height shall be parked adjacent to the required screening fence within a distance of 20 feet from the required screening fence. And 9, the property owner shall be responsible for complying with all FAA regulations. The use of aerial displays such as balloons shall be prohibited. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fackelkotter. Apparently our city audio guy must have picked up some new skills at Country Thunder this past weekend or something. But thank you for all of you for bearing with it. Please let the record show that we have been joined by Commissioner Clark and that he arrived prior to the time that we considered either of the items on this evening's agenda. So thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
You bet. Okay, let's open things up for questions of staff. Commissioner Bishop.
I have 2 questions just to clarify. Under the section talking about a solid material fence, that's staff recommendation number 2. What constitutes solid material? Is that block, wood? Is that chain link with the slats in it?
It would not be chain link with slats.
Okay.
That would be a site obscuring fence.
Okay.
A solid material fence would be either wood or block material. So they would have the option of going with either one of those types.
Okay. And then the other one was for section or for recommendation number 8. nothing taller than 6 feet next to the fence, but further on from the fence? Is that just to kind of keep the view clear from that point?
It really is. I'm gonna go through here a little bit. I think this slide might show it a little bit better. The area in red, outlined in red, is the undeveloped portion of the original subject property. So
Okay.
back in 1995, this was a portion of what was originally approved. At that point, we had the original site plan showed buildings basically extending east to west across the top portion, about 2/3 or so portion of that property. The bottom portion of the property was for RV and outdoor storage, with buildings along this eastern side of what was the original subject property. And as outlined in the findings of fact, that was done to help kind of screen these RVs from the adjacent properties. Since that time, the property outlined in blue was acquired by the owners of the mini storage facility. What they are requesting now is to allow for RVs to be stored everywhere in that vacant area that you see in red,
Okay.
as well as expanding into this blue area. That blue area is a pretty narrow strip. It's only about 40 feet wide, give or take.
Does it, excuse me, does that 40 feet include the easement along Penrod?
That's exclusive of the right-of-way.
Okay,
So
thank
it's
you.
outside of the right-of-way.
Okay.
Essentially, what they are requesting is to expand the RV storage area and also be able to move closer to Penrod Road than what was originally approved, going into that 40-foot that was not part of the original approval. What that staff recommendation number 8 that you referred to, it would allow for storage inside of that 40-foot. You would have a 10-foot landscaping buffer anywhere along a street side. So that would reduce the property down to approximately 30 feet in width of actual storage area. For the first 20 feet beyond the fence, so inside of the storage area, what our recommendation is that they go with something a little bit shorter. You know, a boat, those pop-up trailers, anything that's less than 6 feet in height. That is to help lessen that kind of visual obtrusiveness, if you will, so that you don't have a 6-foot tall fence with potentially, 10 feet of Winnebago or fifth wheel or something sticking up above that right at the fence line. Basically trying to transition that at an angle so it's not right there along the road. That's why you see recommendation number 8 written as it is.
Okay, thank you. That was helpful.
Commissioner Clark?
This question for Mr. Tregaskis, are you recommending approval? Because in the language, it says that you may approve, but is staff actually recommending approval tonight of this conditional use permit?
The recommended motion is recommended to approve, subject to staff recommendations.
Thank you.
Commissioner Robertson?
Yes, Mr. Tregaskis, can you show us where the fire hydrant, is there only one there on that area? And it said it's on the west side, but,
And go to another map here. What you see here is the entire original subject property outlined in red. You can see where they've already developed 2 commercial buildings there along the frontage. These kind of red crosshairs are where fire hydrants are. The hydrant that is specifically referenced in the staff report is right here on this boundary between the original area and the proposed expansion. Again, that's give or take. I mean, this isn't a survey quality photo, but it is interior to the property. In going through our records, we're not exactly sure how it got there. Other than the property owners at the time, as well as our then Public Works Director coordinated, and that's where they put it. We don't have any easement on record that we're aware of for us to access that hydrant. And so the way that we've written the staff recommendation is either leave the hydrant where it is and, give us access, give us an easement, because it is a public fire hydrant, or they would have the option to relocate that hydrant in accordance with fire district requirements, public works department requirements, and get it out of the middle of their property. So that's the reason why that condition is worded the way it is, give them that option.
It seems like an awkward place to put that hydrant.
Yeah, it does.
That, I think, is one thing we can all agree on, so.
To follow on, it says that fencing of hydrants is not allowed. So I assume that that means it's not allowed on private property. I mean, my question is, if, let's assume that they move the fire hydrant out into what is now the easement, they're still gonna put up a fence along the, so it's, the hydrant will still be fenced from the private property, from the storage property, right? But it will, but would then still be available for everybody on the public side.
Yes, that is correct, and I think that's an important distinction. When we say the fencing of hydrants is not allowed, what we mean is you can't put a fence up that prohibits the fire department from being able to access a fire hydrant.
Okay,
And so either they need to make provisions to allow for access if that hydrant remains where it is, which would be, accomplished by means of a gate, all-weather access, that type of thing, or move it to the outside of the fence.
Just
That way it's-
what would you say the distance is from where that hydrant is over to the other main buildings inside the deal? It looks like it'd be a real stretch too.
We have 2 hydrants at that
That's what
location.
I was gonna ask.
One
That was the
is at
second one
the-
right there.
I see it
Yeah,
now.
and, our lines kind of overlapped a little bit. So we do have one hydrant at the main entrance
Okay.
there at Penrod and a second hydrant down at the bottom.
Okay.
So they're both basically in the way of the fence, though.
The fence at the northern end is right there, right on the edge of the driveway. So it was very simple to keep that outside of the fence.
Okay.
Because, you've got to go alongside the driveway regardless. The one down here is the one that's more of a
Okay, I
concern.
see, because it's gonna come in this way. That's right. Okay, very good. Thank you.
further questions for staff? Any questions for the applicant? Okay. Seeing none, is there anybody in the audience this evening that would care to comment on this particular issue? Now is the time to come forward and. Okay, you may. Please, okay, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Richard Greger, and my address will put it as 650 North Penrod Road.
Okay.
You've asked some questions about it. As far as the fire hydrant goes, I think it's correct. We don't see anything in the, any easement for the fire hydrant. I do not believe we'll be moving that fire hydrant. As you pointed out, we have a fire hydrant that is accessible, that does function and would be able to do the job that it's meant to do. As far as the fencing material goes, we were going to be using, if I could show some of the product that we want to use,
Okay,
would that be fun? I have some other flyers for each and every one.
thank you.
When we read what you have in your regulations, it does say that it just needs to be a privacy. The landscaping also will have to change. There's a power line that
Thank you.
runs there for that 10-foot easement, and the trees could not be put there. They would cause problems with the power line. However, shrubs can be used. And we see in your listing of shrubs, there's quite a few choices. And it wouldn't be no problem to put a shrub along that way. That could be 8, 10 feet tall. Trees would have to be, I took a picture of a tree that is sitting there. It's a pine tree. I don't know if the city comes through or if it's Navapache that comes through, but they have to top it. So to us, I think what we would have to do is amend the landscaping and not allow for trees. And that's just one thing, is because of the hazard it would be to the power lines, and also the cost it would either be to Navapache or to the city, whoever's coming through, having to top that. So it would be shrubs. Our view is that the shrubs would be high enough at 8 feet, they would have an obscuring effect, have an obscuring effect on the fence. Also would have the ability to hide a lot of things with that obscuring effect. The fire hydrant, though, I do not think we'll be moving that. That is, as far as I see, our fire hydrant. Is that a truth, or how would that be? Because, see, we're in a gray area to me on this fire hydrant.
It is a public fire hydrant in that it's installed on a public line. It does intrude into the property. If it were a private fire hydrant, there would actually be a backflow assembly that would be required between the public line and the hydrant. And on that size line, that's a pretty massive assembly.
Would we be able to cap it?
We would have to talk with our fire code officials. There are requirements for distances from buildings to fire hydrants. We can see the existing hydrant here and the existing hydrant to the south. They're basically evenly spaced, where if you came to the back and ran, north to south and did the same north to south, they cover evenly all of that property. So that's something we would have to look at and see if we would still meet fire code without that hydrant in place.
Now, those buildings would be in the way of that one fire hydrant going all the way over that you're talking about. I'm not quite seeing what you're talking as far as that fire hydrant there.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're heading, was it west?
Right.
With it? And you're feeling that with that fire hydrant there, hoses and trucks would be able to cover everything. And then moving that fire hydrant closer to Penrod gives us even better coverage?
It doesn't help you with your coverage so much. I mean, obviously, it's moving you 40 feet away from the buildings.
Correct.
But it improves the accessibility of the hydrant. It's easier for the fire department, the fire district, to get to that hydrant if they need to.
We'll have to talk on that one, see how that would go with us.
So,
Because what would that fire hydrant actually be used for? I'm not quite following. It's not so much for the buildings as it is going to be for a forest fire or things like that?
that would be, that hydrant and the one to the north, to my understanding, were primarily installed for this property.
Okay.
Even though we think about RVs and we don't necessarily think of a fire danger, RVs do have propane stored in them. They most of the time have gasoline or diesel fuel. They are fairly flammable, given the right or, I guess, wrong conditions. And so we do need to make sure that we have fire flow available even to an RV.
On this fencing, though, we do believe that that fencing will suffice. It is not regular slats. It's a lot tighter fitting. So as I've looked around through the city, I see a lot of chain link fence with slats in it. I even see the one at the police department, and they have very wide gaps. Wood fence would have gaps. So to keep this, and with the plant stand done in front of it, it would be very obscuring. You wouldn't see this much at all. Is there any questions you have?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go right ahead. You probably are going to ask the same question.
Are you talking about putting the 6 or 8 foot high shrub hedge the inside of the fencing
Would have to
property
be
or
on
the
the
outside?
outside.
So it'd be in the,
As far as I understand, we have a 10-foot easement that we have to give for the landscaping. The
okay.
fence can't be on the outside of that 10-foot easement. It has to be on the opposite
Okay,
side of that
okay.
10-foot easement, if I'm understanding that correctly.
Okay.
Correct, yes.
And then the next obvious question is, recommendation says that it be a
Solid.
solid wall rather than a privacy fence,
That is correct. That is my recommendation.
okay?
But a wood fence, even if you did a regular, like we have in neighborhoods, they're not that thick. I believe those plastic and everything there is just as thick. So that would create a solid. It is not just a thin little slat.
Commissioner Clark.
I guess I have a question for Justin, is do you feel that this would meet our code? That the recommendation is a solid material fence? Would you
We,
believe that would meet the requirements that we're imposing upon the applicant tonight, potentially?
we have, again, going back and giving a little bit of background, when this original CUP was approved back in 1995, the conditional use permit, the submitted site plan did show chain link with slats.
Mhm.
And that's what you see in place there today surrounding that property. Our code does allow for when outdoor storage, and Mr. Mr. Brown and myself already had this discussion today on another piece of property. In our C2 zoning district where this property is located, we make two distinctions. If you abut a residentially zoned property, you must have a solid material fence, which we interpret as being wood, block, something similar. When you do not abut a residentially zoned property, the wording is, and I'm going to look it up so I give it to you exactly the way it is out of code.
I have it here if you'd like. I'll hand it to you.
Says all outdoor storage must be screened from the public view and from the view of the adjoining property owners, a site obscuring fence. So in one case, we say solid material, in the other, we say site obscuring. We have a little bit of a disconnect in our code because when you look in our general provisions, it cites outdoor storage must be, and I'll read you that one too. Again, I don't want to say it incorrectly. In section 15144K, entitled Outdoor Storage, says all outdoor storage shall be screened by a 6-foot-high solid masonry fence or a fence or screening of a height and material as allowed or required by the Planning and Zoning Commission. I think you guys can see the disconnect. In one portion of the code, we say solid material. In another portion, right after it, we say site obscuring. And then in the general provisions, we say solid masonry fence or a fence that you guys allow. So ultimately, in this case, I think you guys would be the final authority on what type of fence. My recommendation for the wood fence rather than the chain link with slats, and I have had the discussion with the representative contractor that was looking to do this regarding this fence, and he's present here this evening. In my opinion, a wood fence along one of our major traffic corridors just seems to look a little bit nicer than what a chain link with slats does. A chain link with slats, again, in my opinion, is more of an industrial type use for screening. We tend to prefer things to look a little bit more woodsy and that type of thing. Hence my recommendation for wood. That is a recommendation. Commission can cuss and discuss that all they want. But Mr. Clark, I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Is this the first time you've seen material, or has he brought this material to staff prior to tonight's meeting?
I spoke with the contractor probably 2 months or so ago. They brought this same type of paper to me. It was not included in the actual submittal. And at that point, you know, my reference was that I would be recommending a wood fence or a solid material fence.
And did they make you any representations at that time?
Their representation again was that they thought that this fence, as presented to the commission tonight, was adequate and was suitable for what their application was.
Okay, thank you.
Along the same lines, if I look at the letter written to you by presumably the Riddles, it says the fence will be a 6-foot-high privacy link constructed of metal and HDPE. I have no clue what HDPE is.
Plastic.
What's that?
The polyethylene.
Oh, okay, so that would be the slats, I assume.
Yes.
Okay. Setback 10 feet from the property line. Okay, so if I understand you correctly, you're saying they provided that to you, but you said, no, that based on your recommendation, that's not an acceptable solution.
I have been consistent from the beginning on this that my recommendation would be a solid material wood or other material type fence. So.
If I may also, on that portion that he did read where it says all outdoor storage must be screened from the public view, from the view of the adjoining property owners, a side obscuring fence shall be built, or side obscuring landscape fence shall be planted. So what we're recommending is using this fence here, plus also going along with the vegetation, we meet this requirement.
What is the difference in pricing as far as like your overall project? Have you had quotes on both wood and,
The block one would be substantially more.
okay, how
But
about
on the
wood?
wood, I have a gentleman here that could probably help us with that answer a lot better than I could.
Okay, and Justin, will you show me on here exactly where this fence
I'd also
is?
like to say something about wood, though, is maintenance is going to be a lot higher. As time goes along, it will start to deteriorate much more rapidly than the chain link with the slats.
Can you show me, is this going to be an L shape or where are they planning to actually, the fence line? It's going to be across that portion there?
Essentially, what is being proposed, I'm going to go here, would be what you see in the green area. So you can see that what's existing there. They're proposing to come out here. Again, this isn't exactly right, that north arrow. When you do PowerPoint, it likes to snap
Yeah.
to different
Yes.
things.
Yeah.
This is a
pulls to-
victim of the snap.
Okay, very good.
And so it would basically be that rectangle running along the adjacent buildings towards Penrod Road.
Okay.
But the fencing, whatever that fencing is.
This
would-
is going to
would-
be,
Right. we
On the
don't-
three sides
that
here.
three
Correct,
sides.
correct.
Yeah, that's what I was, that's what I wanted to.
Okay.
So it's not just the long Penrod, it's all, it's on both ends as well. Okay. And yes, we would like to find out what the difference is as far as wood,
It's probably 30 or 40% more. for
30 or
wood.
40% more than the chain link with the
Yeah.
H.
And then the wood represents some inherent problems. The wood eventually dries out, cracks, falls off. If they were to bump it with an RV or a trailer, it breaks. It has to be painted. So unless they keep up on their maintenance in 3 or 4 years, it won't look so good. The HDPE that you talked about it's a solid surface. It's the color. If it's green, it's green. You know what I mean? It's completely green. So it's always green. So
It doesn't fade in the sun?
mm-mm. So maintenance wise, it's a no-brainer. And if you bump it, it's flexible. It's not as rigid like wood. If you bump it, it doesn't break. It just springs back and so I think long term, maintenance wise and for aesthetics, really, I mean it's the long term is the best way, unless of course you replace pickets and you paint pickets and you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And nobody wants to do that. And so in a residential situation, like around somebody's backyard, where they can keep up on that kind of thing, it's okay. But anyway, questions?
Commissioner Bish?
I had a question for staff. I think we need to clean up that language eventually that's different in 3 different places, but Director Terrassis, you said something about the difference between a privacy fence and a solid fence had to do with abutting a residential property. Can you show us where that is?
In this location, this property does not abut a residential property.
It does not.
Does not, no.
The property to the south is a commercial portion of, what do we call it, the Bluffs, or whatever that commercial area would be.
It's not the Bluffs. I think it's actually, I'm not sure who the owner is of that other piece, but it is a commercially zoned piece.
So I guess I'm a little confused then, because I thought if it did abut, it had to be solid. If it did not abut a residential property, it just had to be a privacy fence. Can you clarify that?
That is correct. The way the code is written in the commercial section, it says if you abut a residential zone, it must be a solid material fence.
But that does not apply to this.
In this case,
property.
they do not abut a residential zone. They abut commercial zone, which says that it must be a site obscuring fence,
It's a privacy fence.
which would be similar to what they're presenting here this evening. With the conditional use permit, you guys have a little bit more latitude, and referring back to that section in the general provisions, it says a solid masonry or as determined by you guys.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Commissioner Barron's, you still have a question?
Is the chain link going to be just the galvanized, or is it going to be a colored?
No, it's a colored link with, it's usually the same color as the HDPE material, so it's a solid color. And if you look at the picture, you'll see that those slats are manufactured into the wire mesh.
Oh,
You can't put them in. They come that way.
Oh,
So you can't take them out, you can't put them in. You see how they're really squashed in there and
Yeah.
they actually touch each other? So
how
that's
is it
like a-
repaired then?
Yeah, so that's like a 98%, I mean, you can't see through it. It's solid.
So if somebody
Okay.
backs into backs into it and it breaks,
It doesn't break. That's the thing, the HDPE is all flexible. So it bends.
I understand,
Yes.
and I've backed into my share of them, so I'm not taking exception to that. I'm just,
Back
I'm
pretty
just
hard,
trying to, yeah, but I mean, technically, if you, I just want, suppose that somebody backs the corner of a trailer into it and it punctures
Right.
the slats. What's the fix?
You have, it's not easy. You have to like sew it.
Okay,
They have repair wire, and you actually have to sew it. It's,
okay.
I mean, it really is it's in between. It's not chain link as you're familiar with.
Right, okay,
But it's certainly not wood either.
right, okay.
It's a kind of a hybrid.
All right.
But it really holds up to weather and to the sun, and it's really maintenance free. And that's why most companies go to it, because it's 100% privacy nearly, and it's nearly 100% maintenance free
So
if you don't run over it.
Forgive me, let me, okay. I want to make sure I understand. We're going to put up, in addition to the privacy fence, we're going to put up a 6 or an 8-foot hedge outside, right, on the city side.
That's what your
okay,
rules say, yes.
Which presumably is going to be sprinkled or, I mean,
We're going to be looking for some drought tolerant. You have a good list of some drought tolerant material. Even the junipers that you have listed in your listing of plants. You have grasses, trees, and shrubs. It's a very extensive list. I think it's like 4 pages long. There's quite a few choices you have there. Butterfly bushes, the junipers. There's things
Okay,
that I
well-
think that would work. I think one thing that we want to look at when we're trying to apply this is I think, as I read in your general plan, is to try to match it with the outline area. I think junipers would fit, because I believe that's quite a bit around there. And you do have a list of other shrubs that are adjacent within the area. So, we can put those in there.
my,
But I do want to make sure drought.
and the reason for exploring that further is that we have had situations where the commitments that the folks made with respect to landscaping weren't particularly well adhered to.
Sure.
And we've had to readdress those issues on an occasional basis, and we just want to know.
Well, we want the place also aesthetically appealing, so we're not there to put in a haphazard job and then watch the shrubs die. At that time, it kind of makes it look bad, and that's not our goal. But we will want to make it more drought tolerant, because one thing with irrigation systems, at least in my experience in some of the areas I've been in, animals can start chewing on them. You have a sprinkler plug up, and then they start to fail. If we can sit there, usually with a drought tolerant plant, get them established within the first 2 years or 3 years, they should be able to maintain on their own. That would be the goal. That makes it easier for us and makes it, much more feasible that it will succeed.
Okay, thank you for that input. I appreciate that. Vice Chair Robertson.
2 questions. One, since we're on the plants, let me ask you, what size plants are you planning to bring in? I mean, are they going to be seedlings to start with, or are you going to actually bring in?
Well, we're going to go deal with landscape people to do that. So, usually they come in 1 gallon, 5 gallon. They come in varied sizes. But we're not going to be doing plugs, as what
Okay.
you would say a seedling is. That's something that, like you'd see in the forestry system. They have a little plug, they boom, pop them in. We wouldn't be going that small. Probably
Okay.
looking at your 1 gallon or so.
My next question is, what is the warranty on these fences, as far as what do they say the life of the fence?
Expert again.
They're like 20, 30 years.
20, 30 years, okay.
Further questions for the applicant?
I
Mr.
have one
Clark.
about the the landscaping, so specifically, what are you asking to deviate from city code?
Trees, so every so often you have to have a tree plus then a shrub and a tree, a shrub, if I understand, am I correct on that?
Right. What city code would require is for every essentially 20 feet of frontage, you would be required to plant one tree.
Okay.
Several references have been made to our suggested plant list. That is something that we do have. They're plants that are a little more suitable to what our environment here is. It's amazing, but there are times when we get landscape plans and they say things like Palo Verdes
Yeah.
and yucca
Yeah, yeah,
and, that type of thing. And so this list was created in an effort to aid people with appropriate plants. So one tree every 20 feet, that could be anything from, for example, an aspen type tree to a blue spruce. Austrian pine is used quite a bit here. They really match the form of the ponderosa really nicely. Those obviously grow very tall. In that case, there would be a concern with power lines for sure. We also have other trees that are listed there that don't grow as tall. For example, you see our trees up and down the deuce here, the landscaping. Those essentially are a dwarf type tree. They grow about 15, maybe 20 feet tall, and that's it. So something like that is a little bit more suitable for areas where you do have height considerations. So you have one tree every 20 feet. We then require one bush or shrub every 10 feet. And again, those could be chosen from the list, or people can suggest something different. We understand that our list is not going to be 100%. There may be something else out there. But the butterfly bush has been referenced, something like that would be appropriate. Shrubby cinquefoils get used quite a bit. Again, quite a number of trees there, or shrubs, excuse me. And then we also have a requirement for a minimum of a 30% vegetative ground cover. So in the case of, let's say you've got 1,000 square feet of required landscape area, that would be a 100-foot strip, 10 feet wide. 300 square feet of that would have to be a vegetative ground cover. So this couldn't consist of just gravel with the shrubs and trees. There would need to be the vegetative ground cover. Most people end up coming in with some type of a grass, just because that's real easy to show, here's my 30%. But that's something that, we've worked with people on, and they've proposed different things. In front of Discount Tire, they used kind of a creeping juniper. So real low growing, pretty hardy. That could count as a vegetative ground cover. The issue that you run into with that is it's not 30% when the plant is mature. It's 30% when you install the plant. That takes a lot of creeping juniper, for example. And that's why we see more people coming in with the grass or something along those lines. If you look in front of Panda Express, they put in a real natural appearing type ground cover to match what was already there in the right of way. You really don't even see, it doesn't stick out because it matches what's there, but you don't just have a strip of gravel right there. So they would be the one tree every 20 feet, the one bush every 10 feet, and then 30% vegetative is what city code would require.
And have you had issues in the past with individuals planting these trees and them grow? I mean, it sounds like they put them in the right of way or utility easements frequently. Does that occur?
It's not uncommon for landscaping to occur in a utility type easement. Most properties right along the front, right along the street, have some type of a utility easement there. The property owner installs the landscaping. If at some point work needs to be done in that area, the landscaping gets removed, work is done, and then it's up to the property owner to replace the landscaping. That happens, but very, very seldom.
So for my question for the applicant is specifically what's your concern about the trees and why would you ask to?
They're very low. And usually with power companies, they have a distance around the wire that has to be clear. So when you look at just the wire there, then you have another spacing, you end up not being able to grow trees. And I took a picture of a pine tree there, and it's not that tall. I don't know that you could use the ones you have on the Deuce clubs, getting to 15 feet. If they, some places, depending on the current, may require a 10-foot, then you're at 25 feet, and that line's not 25 feet high. So, I mean, we'd have to find out what Navapatche's requirements are on that. But in my experience, they do, depending on the load that's carried through them, they do have a diameter around the wire.
Mr. Chair, if I could, my recommendation on that, obviously, if there's issues with the power line that prohibit the placement of trees, we're not gonna put trees in there. So that would be something I think that, you give the flexibility to say, if permitted, the trees go in, if not permitted, then we go to the shrubs and the bushes. I think that would be a reasonable accommodation in this instance. I would like to also comment, one of the questions that was asked was why was staff recommending a wood fence versus chain link with the HDPE, chain link with slats. And what I've got here on the overhead is the originally approved site plan. Again, this is the one that did not include the 40-foot strip, which is at least part of the reason why we are here this evening. It also indicated that chain link with slats would be used around the perimeter of the property. I apologize, we oriented this north and south because that's the way most people are used to looking at maps, but the writing is east to west, so that's what all this stuff says up here. You can see on the east side of the property where the buildings were proposed to go, and you can see that they had buildings lined up along that east side. In that case, those buildings would have taken the place or could have taken the place of that chain link with slats. Our kind of position, again, going back to the beginning and being consistent, was you had a solid building that was going to be used as screening. Maybe we should recommend using a solid fence as screening as well. So again, just another, it's not something we just pulled out and said we want a wood fence. There actually was a little bit of thought that went into it, and that's why the recommendation is there.
Justin, would there be the possibility of asking that the wood fence be put across the front and then the chain link around the other parts of the property, or?
That's certainly a possibility and would be within the purview of the commission. Again, going back to that 15-144, where it talks about the outdoor screening, it says, or as otherwise allowed by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay.
Little dialogue amongst ourselves here. Thank you for the input. I appreciate it very much. We may call you back. We'll see.
All right, thank you.
I'm sensitive, I think, to, Justin's position of site obscuring, but I'm not personally, I'm not a fan of wood fencing. And this is, like I said, my own personal input. This, and the reason is strictly the amount of time that I spend taking care of my own.
Maintenance.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think that's, and I work at it every year. So I know what it takes, and I spend less time on the portion of it which is vinyl covered chain links than I do on the portion which is wood. So I really would like to follow the guidelines that Justin and his team have given us, but I'm not sure that I think that the wood fencing is the only way to accommodate what he wants done. So, anybody want to?
My fear is a wooden fence requires a lot of upkeep, and if it's not kept up, then that's gonna be a eyesore. I mean, so block would be good, or something that doesn't require maintenance. That's kind of my thought. Maintenance-free, I think, is probably the best long-term solution for the city's point of view.
Other commentary from the rest of the team?
Well, that's kind of where I'm leaning towards too, is that, I know also your predicament as far as the wood fence, as far, it looks great,
New.
but if they don't make a concerted effort to keep it up, then it's gonna look terrible in about 5 years, because this sun up here will eat that wood up.
And the
Quick.
wind and the snow and the rain,
Yep.
yeah.
So, really the ideal situation, as far as I'm concerned, which is the cost involved, is that a block fence would be the,
Well, I agree. I mean, if it would be nice if, and again, we will learn these things as we go along, where we have, what do we want to call it, where we have inconsistencies in the way the language is written in the code and how we apply it in specific instances. But I guess, given what we've got, we will make a decision, hopefully, based on what we think is the best overall solution. One question that I would like to raise is, could we effectively say that the guidelines, the landscaping guidelines recommended by the city will be adhered to unless the trees are determined to cause a problem? In other words, they would follow the tree and the shrub and the tree and the shrub on the outside and the ground cover, whatever. I mean, I have no issue with those, okay? Until we say that landscaping plan will be followed, subject to power lines and the trees.
Our attorney's nodding affirmative. So, one thing, again, going back to the screening, representations made about the types of bushes that could be used there. The commission may want to look at perhaps the size that they are when they're planted.
Correct.
I mean, a 1-gallon shrub is a lot different in size than a 5-gallon shrub. You're going to get maturity a lot quicker on one than you are the other. That may be, again, something that the commission could say, hey, we're willing to trade off this fence a little bit, but in return, we want these plants to grow a little bit quicker than a 1-gallon shrub would do.
I like
I
that.
like that.
I do too.
I do have another question for the applicant.
While that's happening, Mr. Chairman, I'm almost wondering, I mean, we haven't made any kind of definitive determination that Navapache Electric or whoever the utilities are going to, balk at the fact that, trees can't be in this area. It happens all the time. So I would almost, if the condition 3 is too cumbersome and that it's impossible for him to comply with the landscaping material, then he could essentially come back and put it on another agenda item, and then we would have the facts before us. But I almost think that that's an easier way to do it, is to say you comply with the city code. Hundreds of businesses do it every day. And if there is an extenuating circumstance where they can't, conform to the conditional use permit, at that point, then we could come back and revisit it then. But he would be held to the same standard as everybody else who comes before us for a conditional use permit.
With respect to the landscaping.
With respect to the landscaping,
right.
because I mean, it seems it would make more sense at that point, because then we would have something hard and fast from, the utility company saying, yeah, there's absolutely no way you can comply with the city code, and then we would have to come back to us, and then, it would make more sense to deal with it in that fashion than for us to sit here and try to craft language, to deal with this instance when I don't know if we're almost creating a solution to a problem that I don't know exists.
Well, it does exist. The tree is cut. They do come and cut the tree. that you cannot deny. I can show you the picture right now. Therefore, someone's coming out. I don't know if it's the city. I don't know if it's
No, it's-
Navapachi, but
I
somebody
can
is
tell you, in
coming
our
out.
neighborhood, it's
Yes.
definitely Navapachi, and they've been working in there full-time over about the
Right.
last
Yeah, they,
2.5
So,
weeks.
but
they trim
I
trees
have
all
no
the
problem, we
time.
have no problem with the tree shrub. All I do is I see that problem.
How tall is
And
that
that
tree?
is, huh?
How tall is that tree that
Would you
you're
like to see the
referencing?
picture? You can kind of get an idea, but it's not that tall. I would say, I don't think it's even 12 feet.
And the line's too low.
It does sag. It is a very low line. It's very big, and it is pretty much that way. Here's where they've cut it, and if you can see the tree there, that's how they've removed it. That clearance is probably what they require around that line. And then to show that it is cut, you can see it up there where they have made their cut. So to say that the problem doesn't exist would be a true one, but on the same token, we have no problem with the landscaping that the city has. All I identify is a problem there. And if we continue and go ahead, then yeah, we can come back and meet again over it, as Navapachi tells me that they're gonna come out and start cutting on these trees. You're worried about the size of the plant, but cutting on a tree is not good. A lot of people think it stimulates growth, but it doesn't. It stops the root growth. So you'll have a stunted growth, you have a cut, you have the chance for disease and pests. You could have more problems. So all I'm saying is, looking at it, I see it's already done. Maybe on the ends where the pole's at and the lines are higher, we'll be fine. But it's something, I don't want to spend money and then come back so we're gonna have problems.
But at the same time, I think anytime you're going to put landscape in an easement, there's always the potential that they're gonna come and do work, and then you're gonna be, that's the risk of business.
Yeah, that's not a problem. I mean, I've dealt with easements. I understand that. That's really, because I believe the director was correct. It's very seldom you have that happening. I mean, that they're tearing things up. But it's not about the easement for undergrounds or anything. What it is the fact that when storms come and these trees start raking the lines, you're gonna have some problems. And it's not gonna be just the fact that the tree rubbed them there, but now you're gonna have business residents possibly without power and then live lines on the ground, which cause a health and safety issue. When it comes to the fact about a 1 gallon or a 5 gallon, don't necessarily always make a plant grow bigger faster. It's a pretty set thing. Sometimes a smaller plant has more root mass, and that root mass allows it. I'm very familiar with plants. One of my degrees is plant physiology, so I'm pretty good with it. But however, 1 gallon, 5 gallon, I don't think that's the biggest issue here, nor the landscaping. I feel like it's the material for the fence. You mentioned something about block. If I understand right from the fence guy, that's gonna cost us 2.5, 3 times more. And that's for a very basic gray cinder block. We haven't even got to anything nice. I still feel that this fencing material with proper landscaping will achieve everything that we all want. Us having as being cost effective, because that's, if anything, when we look at stuff, economics always has to be placed into it. Even in your general plan, you talk about how businesses are important. Your sales tax happens to be one of the things that you guys aren't doing anything with property tax. This will bring in some more sales tax. Granted, it's not huge as maybe we'd like to all envision, but on the same token, it does fit that criteria and does achieve that goal too.
Okay, one of the questions that I had was, have you decided what color? Because I see it does come in a lot of colors here.
I'm not sure, did he decide on the color yet? He hasn't told me.
I don't know, I guess it was green, green sticks in my eye. I thought it was like a forest green or something.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like that would work really good. I mean, I would think that the green or something along that, because once you put the plants in front, it would really start to blend in, and it wouldn't be so noticeable. I don't think the colors have any more charges to them, do they?
No,
One color to the next.
It's all the same.
So, I mean, I'd be happy with green.
Okay, forest green.
I just kind of think that, you know, if we had a piece of that to look at, you know, I'm just not a big fan of chain link fence with the slats in it, and like he's saying, it's all molded together. Well, you know, I don't know. I just have a hard time getting my arms around that, because most of that stuff just looks so bad after a certain length of time. You're either going in there replacing the slats all the time or something, but it just, I don't know, just looked like we should have had something to look at, see what that is.
Mr. Chair.
Have you ever seen it, Justin? Have you ever seen?
I've seen fences, I don't know that I've seen this exact product. I've seen fences that are similar in nature.
Mhm.
Essentially what they do is they mold a ridge of plastic, a slat. And then depending on the company, sometimes they make it kind of frilly on the edges. Sometimes they use just a little bit softer plastic on the edges. And then they actually, as they are weaving the metal for the chain link, they weave the plastic into the fence.
Hmm.
So it's not like some of these chain link fences where you can actually go in and
Pull the
physically
slats out.
pull. You can't do that with this type of fence. The slats are an integral part of the chain link. The representations that have made, I think, are pretty accurate in the amount of blockage that you'll get because you do have that kind of soft plastic that allows it to move around those chain link bends. And so you don't have a hard, firm edge that ends and then a gap between the plastic slats. They really do butt up against each other pretty well. As far as difference between this and wood, I think a new wood fence is probably going to be pretty close to this. Maintenance and upkeep becomes an issue with any type of fence. One question I would have on the chain link that's been presented this evening, I don't know how it holds up to cold temperatures. I know I had a house with vinyl siding on it.
And it doesn't work very
And
good.
I hit that with a rock when it was about 5 degrees outside and I put a big hole in it. During the summer, no problem. That would be a question, and I see a hand being raised by our local fence
It
expert.
does say on here.
Just as an answer to that, and you're right, I mean, some of the plastic slats get very brittle and they break.
Mhm.
The HTP stuff, it's the same stuff that they use for like we use HTP pipes. The city service lines are HTP because it can freeze and thaw and it doesn't break. It's just nearly bulletproof. You can't hurt it.
It does say that the minimum temperature is -76 and the maximum is 250 Fahrenheit. And it
Neither of
does-
which I hope we reach here.
That's,
Well, of
thank you
course
very
not.
much.
Yeah, and it also says that it does have a 15-year pro rata limited warranty. So that's a 15-year, not 20 or 30, but 15 is not bad.
All right,
Okay,
Commissioner Clark, I see a hand.
I like the compromise
Okay,
about is allowing for the fence, but maybe some bigger trees or shrubs to start.
okay.
And that's just kind of where I'm at, because I think, we've got some conflicting things and compromises move us forward, and
Mhm.
if we don't, then we stay here.
Are we ready for a motion or?
Yes.
I will try my best at a motion to try to capitalize what we've talked about. I would move to approve conditional use permit 60204-186 submitted by Brian and Bridget Riddle, L trustees, to allow RV storage and mini storage on assessor parcel number 210-24-005C and to amend conditional use permit 95- or UP 95-018 to modify the previously approved site plan to allow for RV storage in place of proposed mini storage buildings on assessor parcel number 210-24-081A, subject to staff recommendations. However, I would like to modify staff recommendation number 2 to state and I'll read it slow, Marion, I know you have to take it down. A solid material fence or wall, meaning a fence so constructed that it completely obstructs the view, shall be constructed of wood, masonry, or pre-woven fence slats made of HDPE, shall be constructed around the perimeter of the proposed storage area on both APN 210-24-005C and APN 210-24-081A prior to storage activities taking place on the subject properties.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Do we need to address the landscaping issue since we are accepting them as you have presented them?
The way that the staff recommendations are worded and under the motion of Commissioner Clark, they would be required to meet city code for the landscaping, which would include the trees. If the commission, wishes, they could add, subject to Navapache approval or something along those lines so that we could verify with Navapache Electric that these trees either will or will not obstruct. I understand the applicant's concerns. I think they mirror ours. We don't want to see something put in that's just got to be ripped out later. That's certainly not the intent of the code nor the recommendation. However, we don't have anything definitive from Navapache that says trees absolutely can't go in here. We don't have anything definitive that says they absolutely can. We have a picture that shows that the tree got topped, and that's not surprising. We can point to a number of trees in town that have received the same treatment. So the way that the motion, the way I understand it, Commissioner Clark, is that city code would be met. If it proved that trees were not feasible in that location due to the power lines, the applicant would actually have to come back to the commission to change that condition of approval. Again, going back to the commission, you can leave it the way it is, or motion maker could amend his motion to allow for the flexibility related to Navapache's requirements.
And larger plants.
I specifically did not want to amend number 3. I don't think that I am friends with the chief arborist for Navapache on a daily basis. He and his team go and cut and trim trees for lines. It's an intricate part of their job, and it's a part of what Navapache does. And I think that if a situation arose to where it was just completely impossible for the applicant to adhere to city code, then he can come back and address it at that point. I don't want to change my motion based off of a problem that I don't think exists.
Okay. Does everybody understand the motion as presented? Okay, we have a motion and a second, do we not?
Did you need me to repeat the motion, or did you get it, Marianne? Okay, great.
We're good? Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously, subject to,
Thank you. As with any conditional use permit, there is a 7-day appeal period. If no appeal is received by the city clerk within those 7 days, this conditional use permit will become effective. Also, on a personal note, I'd like to thank the representative. Had to work around a wedding schedule for him to be here, so thank you.
likewise, we appreciate your input. Okay, that brings us then to the second item for consideration this evening, which is the conditional use permit 602-04-188, submitted by Jason Lund to allow for the sale of secondhand goods located at 500 East Deuce of Clubs, that being assessor's parcel number 210-19-004. Ms. Spectelcotter.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. Jason Lund has submitted a conditional use permit, or CUP, to allow for the sale of secondhand goods located at 500 East Duso Clubs, that being APN 210-19004. The subject property was previously utilized as a Verizon store and is currently zoned C2, which is general commercial. The sale of secondhand goods requires a CUP in the C2 zone. This is a privately owned for-profit business which is not associated with a charity or thrift store. The applicant indicated that they would not be accepting donations at the location and there would be no outdoor storage. The applicant also indicated that they are in the process of upgrading the existing landscaping outside the building. Findings of fact: the current zoning of the surrounding properties to the north, south, east, and west is C2, all general commercial. The current land uses of the surrounding properties includes to the north, New Image Auto Body, to the south, Title Max, to the east, the Video Dome, and to the west, Woody's Gas Station. Transmittal memos were sent to all affected agencies, and applicable comments received include the police department indicated that a background check was performed and nothing was found that would prevent the issuance of this permit. A Timber Mesa Fire District said that according to the fire marshal, the last known occupancy class was B. This may be a change of occupancy and must meet all requirements of the 2012 IFC. The property was posted and letters were sent to all property owners within 300 feet of the subject property. Staff received a phone call from an area property owner regarding clarification of use. However, no opposition was expressed regarding the proposed CUP. After reviewing the standards for review, the zoning ordinance, discussions with the applicant, and because the request is consistent with the City of Show Low general plan, staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission approve conditional use permit 602-04-188 submitted by Josh Lund to allow for the sale of secondhand goods located at 500 East Yusuf Clubs, that being APN 210-19004, subject to the following conditions. 1. All development shall comply with all applicable federal, state, and local requirements, including building permit requirements. 2. No outdoor storage, donations, or collections of secondhand goods shall be permitted on the subject property. All receipt, sorting, and processing of goods shall occur entirely in the building. In accordance with Section 15-144-8B, no seconders shall be permitted on the subject property. 4. All signs shall comply with Section 15-145 of City Code. 5. The owner and applicant shall coordinate with staff to complete upgrading the existing landscaping of the subject property within 30 days of the effective date of the CUP. And 6. This conditional use permit is non-transferable. Staff, as well as a applicant's representative, is available for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Fechtel-Cotter. All right. Questions for staff? Questions for the applicant? Seeing none. Commissioner Bishop?
I'd like to make a motion that follows the recommended motion. I move to approve CUP 602-04-188 submitted by Jason Lund to allow for the sale of secondhand goods at 500 East Yusuf Clubs, that being APN 210-19-004, subject to staff recommendations.
A second.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion also carries unanimously. Mr. Tagastas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, with any conditional use permit, there is a 7-day appeal period. If no appeal is received by the city clerk within that 7 days, this conditional use permit will become effective.
Okay. All right, that brings us to our call to the public. Anybody in the audience who would like to address the issue may do so. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Deborah Lund, and my address is 1020 North 33rd Drive, Show Low. I just actually wanted to ask Justin exactly what does that mean? Does that mean after 7 days we can open?
Yes.
That's all I want to know is when
Okay.
we can open.
Probably more appropriate under the previous one, but I think we can answer the question. 7-day appeal period is in place for anyone, whether it's the applicant, adjacent property owner, to say, hey, we think you guys missed something, maybe you made a mistake, we'd like you to reconsider. If that appeal was received, it would then go to the city council for actual consideration. So yes, we have to wait the 7 days. Come day 8, open the door, off you go.
We can open.
Provided no appeal, yes.
Thank you. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
I appreciate it.
Good luck.
Very much.
All right.
Good night.
Get
We
that.
have no minutes to approve this evening. That's a rare occurrence, but we'll accept that. Which leads us to a summary of current events, and we'll start with Commissioner Clark.
I just want to apologize to the commission for being late. I was not late for the reasons that Mayor de Blasio gave over the weekend for his reason for being late. So if any of you guys want to laugh, go ahead and look up that on online. I was attending to my most important job, which is my fatherly duties of taking my son to a Little League game. So I apologize for being late, and I am headed right back after this meeting. So that's all I have. Thank you.
No apology necessary, but accepted anyway, so. Commissioner Bishop,
Nothing to share this evening.
Commissioner Behrens,
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Commissioner Berry,
Nothing. Thank you.
Vice Chair Robertson,
Nothing to report.
and likewise from the chairman, Director Trakaskis.
Just two things. Whenever we're dealing with people or looking at different things that are going on in the city, there are a group of people who step forward and go over and above what is required. And they do it not because they're asked, but because they just have pride in the things that they do and the way that things look. And so tonight I would like to publicly thank that group of people. We have a very large group of people here in town that would fit that classification. And it really, I think, benefits our community. So I would like to thank those people that do that, not because they're told they have to, but because they want to. And secondly, somewhat along the lines of Commissioner Clark, my son turned 16 today. And I would like to wish him a happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
That's all I have.
What's his name?
Nathan.
Nathan. Happy birthday,
And did he
Nathan.
get a driver's license for a birthday present?
Not yet, no. No, there's the requirement that you have your permit for 6 months. He was not able to get his permit on the exact 6-month date because we were out of town due to fall break. So the drivers in the city have about a 1-week reprieve.
Well, we're sure that they don't need it, but thank you for that. Okay, with that, we will call this meeting adjourned.
Thank you. Bill, don't forget your glasses.
Thank you, Kathleen.
He's got a whole purse of stuff over there. That's his phone.
Last week.
Wow, okay.
This one,